Hi, I'm Milton.
I'm Devin.
And this is Bridging the Gap. Today we wanted to take a look at some nice objective data. Really nice time. Look at some of the most well-performing decks, see some of their strengths, weaknesses, what you might be able to do if you see them at your LGS, how to counteract them, what you might do if you're even thinking about building these decks yourselves. And we have, right now, 3 decks that we really want to look at. If we have time, we'll go through a few more. But what do you think, off the top of your head, some of the 3 best decks, data-wise, are?
Right now, Tivit has been doing really well. Tivit Cellular Secrets, Nagila, the Blossom Blade, and then...
Blade Blossom, yeah.
Yeah, Blade Blossom. And then the last one would be Crom and Timna.
Actually, 100% correct, right? All 3 of those, according to the great news site, EDH Top 16, have had the most entries and Top 16 participation points since this new system has been founded. Very nice, very great. And they're even popping up some more lower in LGSs. You might see some, we ourselves regarding ourselves a new Tivit player. A friend of ours was a really fun Nagila player, really great. Crom, I in fact have. Crom Timna, Blue Farm. It's not my favorite, but we have it. We got to make sure someone in the store does. And so what are some of the weaknesses? Let's start with Blue Farm, right? Because that's something I'm a little bit familiar with. What do you think some of the strengths and weaknesses of Blue Farm as an outside observer are?
The most relevant strength of Blue Farm is the fact that it has a lot of draw power. Both commanders draw you a lot of cards, especially Crom with Timna. That's immediately 1 card off of combat, and then all the other cards off of casting spells, and also all the other cards from other creatures dealing
great value engines in the zones. Really nice. You cannot say that it's not effective at what it needs to do, right? Mm-hmm. You even get the engines of Ristic Study, Basic Remora, Esper Sentinel, the big 3 in draws in cEDH right now. You get the ability to say wheel, if that's the route you're going, right? Very nice, very fun. Those 2 draw engines can be very detrimental when you're trying to go for that really traditional win of Thassa's Oracle Console. It's very dangerous to have your commander out at those times. Very dangerous to have that Esper Sentinel. Very easy to bait you out. That is potentially one of the biggest weaknesses, right? You are suffering from success, all right? When you are playing Blue Farm, because it's maybe not be the most numbered best deck in the format, but it definitely has that reputation of being super explosive, super amazing, you have a lot of hate from the table. That's one of those decks that everyone knows how to take care of. Everyone and their mom knows exactly what you're looking at, exactly what you got in there, right? Your biggest spice in a Blue Farm deck is an Angel's Grace if you're feeling really spicy today.
Angel's Grace Adnos is really good.
Angel's Grace Adnos is good. And I've seen the spice. But for the most part, Blue Farm is built in a very particular way, very consistently. And that is fun, right? There is nice to say you might have some spice in there. Some people have been playing Doomsday lines. Mine personally does. Some people have had their own little methods of availability. But 9 times out of 10, you give me a Blue Farm deck, I can tell you 90% of those cards in there. And the other ones are variations of your lands, right? You don't have a lot of space to maneuver, to tinker around, to kind of exploit. Because 1, the deck has been solved pretty hard, pretty well. There is no new innovation coming in Blue Farm. We looked at, in their own Discord, cut stuff that came out in the new set, Lord of the Rings, and very few changes even came up. We talked about maybe Lotho, which is a good card, I will admit. But other than that, nothing made the cut because we already know everything that needs to go in.
Probably Bowmaster. Bowmaster and Lotho, those are probably the only 2 cards in Lord of the Rings.
You're true. Bowmasters did make a cut. Crazy how that happened. But yeah, very few changes ever happen in the deck. And that stagnation can be a blessing and a curse simultaneously, right? You absolutely know that if you ever have any questions about Blue Farm, someone has had those answers. 5 dozens of people have had those questions. 5 million people have had those answers. Very nice, very good. But it's very easy to know exactly where to hit, exactly where your sweet spots are. You're going to want to take care of that ad nauseum, right? You're going to want to make sure you keep those draw engines out. That Timna is not staying around if anyone has a say in the matter. Very true, very scary, but you do suffer from success, like I said, right? Anything that you think is a strong weakness of Blue Farm?
If you aren't able to get Consultation or Tainted Pact out early, then it becomes a Breach Brain Freeze deck, and getting rid of either of those will also kill the deck.
Very true, right? Your reliance now on your very specific combos does kind of express. Your reliance on those very specific combos does kind of limit your potential options, right? There are, in fact, best ways to play Blue Farm. It sucks, it's hard, but there is a right answer to this. Once you have that right answer, you know exactly where your weaknesses are. Any lockout with a Rest in Peace effect. Dothi has been very effective against a Breach deck. I've seen someone flash it into Dothi in response to the Brain Freeze. Oh my goodness, that was beautiful. Very nice, very consistent, and a huge way of just being able to address all the problems that come out. But again, this is a strength, right? Blue Farm has an amazing pivot skill, right? Blue Farm is possibly the very best deck at saying, I want to go turbo. That's not working out for me. Let's go to mid-range. And that is a very specific skill that Blue Farm excels potentially the best at in the game, right? We've seen entire games when we've tried pushing and throwing everything out at the Blue Farm, and just because it can sit there and take it really well, like, you can kind of grow very nicely. Blue Farm can take a punishment. It's a little, we're good there. And that's fair, right? We do like that. We do like seeing it as a very nice selling point of the deck. The next deck I kind of wanted to take a look at is Tivit, right? You do not like Tivit decks.
There's several reasons why I don't like Tivit decks. Tivit decks are one way to win. You get your 2-drop artifact, Time Sieve, and as long as Tivit is able to make contact, you win.
Very true.
Or if you have Displacer Cannon, then you don't have to do combat damage. You can just draw out your entire deck. It's really streamlined. It either wins through Time Save or wins through Thassa's Consultation.
You are a very strong commander-focused deck.
Yes. If you lose Tivit, if it's countered every single time you cast it, by the time you're casting it for the third time, it's not worth. It costs way too much. Already starting at a 6-drop. Already needing blue, white, and black to cast plus 3 colorless. Now it costs 7 more colorless plus the original 3. 10 mana to cast your commander. It's costing you too much to maintain and then too much value that you're losing.
Tivit is a very strong deck. You have to respect it. It's very nice. But because of that commander reliance, not only are you vulnerable to a very strong counterspell suite, any person who has a Kenrith transformation sort of effect, the ability to essentially take a single creature off the board without taking it actually off the board, is very relevant. And yes, that Ward 3, very nice, very helpful, and you gotta love it. But if someone can pay for that Ward 3 and hits you with a Darksteel Mutation of all things, absolutely disgusting. Having your commander just being a 6/6 guy on the ground, throw a blocker at it, chump block it every time. But you don't really care so much once you've lost that combo potential.
Darksteel actually turns it to a 0/1.
Well, I mean,
Even
yeah,
worse.
Darksteel does, but any sort of effect that kind of mitigates its effects, any humility effect, even as a single target, forcing you to address that single targeting point, very, very strong. Also, Time Sieve is just an artifact. Hit it with your card. You know exactly where we're going with this. Get rid of the Time Sieve the moment you see it. Get that exiled, remove it, counter it. It is Esper. It's going to have a really hard time recurring an artifact from the graveyard. What are they going to do? Endurance? Come on now. Very important that you should just keep those combo lines off the air, offline. Dress Down's really good. I love me a Mindbreak Trap. It's one of my favorite cards in the entire game. I will advocate for it until the day I die. Till the day I think it gets banned. But having the ability to get rid of it as long as you can, keep it away, very strong. But again, this does come with some great strength. This is not the most reported winning deck for no reason. This thing just, in fact, got top 4 Mox Masters. I think it even won itself, right? The one that happened this Sunday of Mox Masters July that came out on the 8th. Really nice, amazing gameplay. But we have, in fact, seen that this deck performs very well, very consistently. This is not a flash-in-the-pan deck, but you need to be aware of it, right? It's got some really strong strengths. A flying 6/6, chef's kiss. Really nice, right?
Also, you have the white tutors to search artifacts, and then you have all the black tutors that do search anything. The consistency of it is just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
It's able to get everything it needs at any point in the game. And then also while being in blue, you have Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study. You have a lot of draw potential. You have a lot of power. You're just able to get everything you need without suffering a lot.
Agreed, right? You have so many layers, so much consistency, so much redundancy that the moment you're worried about one tutor, you've got another one right up the pipeline. And again, Esper, as much as we like to talk about it, Esper is not a bad color combination, right? Having that amazing ability of counterspells, protection, tutors, really sweet, right? Really nice, very effective. And Tivit is one of those decks now that unfortunately you kind of have to build around if you're going into a tournament. You have to be prepared that if you're not seeing a Tivit, you are the abnormality, right? Be prepared to see it. Be prepared to counter it. Look and see exactly what you need to do. But wait a minute, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to make sure that you have exactly the answers that you need. And that's why we want you to keep listening, keep following, right? And one of those things that we really love to see, have a single person that can stop a Tivit, right? Tivit, again, suffers from success, right? We know we mentioned that with Blue Farm, but that is a terrifying thing. Once you have all these things out, you have completely lost the brewer's advantage, right? Tivit does have a little bit more leeway than Blue Farm. There's still innovation happening as far as I've noticed. Some really nice things, some really cool attributes. You do get the nice Bowmasters combo from Lord of the Rings. Always cool being able to sack your clues, draw your cards, make some guns. Who would have thought? Really fun time. But those treasures and understanding exactly that balance is really good. Do you personally have like a kind of tipping point where you give treasures or clues, or to you is it always just treasures, or are you just an always clue guy? What's your goal?
Typically is always clues. It does depend on what they have on board. If they have a way to sack an artifact to produce 2 mana like KCI, then giving them clues is not really the best option.
Terrifying option.
Because now they can just stack their treasures for 2 mana, draw a card, and they just get way more value than they should.
I saw someone on Urza to do the exact same thing. Really strong, really powerful, really effective. For me personally, it's a little bit more nuanced. For me, I have this nice little equation I go through my head. Do I want to give them access to about half the cards they have mana, right? So to me, that means for every clue they have, I want to make sure they have at least 1 treasure and vice versa. That does seem a little bit tricky, right? But you want to make sure that it costs them more to draw cards than you are giving them the option to. That type of player will always have the option to try and bounce the scales in their favor. But remember, they're choosing first, right? You always want to make sure that your choices are reflective of what's going on in that game. Do not just give them treasures as a rule, not just give them clues as a rule. Make sure that you are taking care of exactly what's going on in that board state, right? Anytime you're just going off and saying this is what you're always going to get, you are now giving that Tivit player much more advantage than you need to give them, right? Be careful, be smart, all right? Any other decks that you wanted to talk about before we go on to that last of the big 3, Najila? It's been doing really well, but any personal decks that you think that...
Probably Kinnan.
Kinnan?
Kinnan is a really strong deck. It has topped a lot of events, and it just produces a lot of mana. A turn 2 Kinnan is probably the scariest thing, just because that means they already played a turn 1 mana dork, and if not, also a rock or 2. So that way their turn 2 is even scarier, because now everything just produces way more mana than it needs to produce.
Absolutely, right? Kinnan is absolutely one of those decks that you cannot let sleep, right? The ability to go off with a single 1-card combo and from the Command Zone and Basalt Monolith, really nice, very beautiful. It doesn't give you that color, but you getting infinite colorless in the Kinnan deck, not something you want them to have, guys. Keep aware, keep safe, right? And it has, in fact, done some really well at times, right? In Mox Masters of March, it did get first place with Ian Flannery. Really nice, very beautiful. But we have seen exactly how this deck can go off, right? This is one of those decks that has a lot of top 16 placements. Not something you want to keep an eye off of, right? And one of the strengths of Kinnan is that it has a lot of potential of this little spice into it, right? Any cards, any big creatures can be slapped in there. We've seen Sphinxes. I've seen Akoma. Void Winnower is a favorite of people.
I love the current build that a lot of people I've seen play is Lurking Predators. It just allows them to drop big creatures on your own turn, not even their turn.
Honestly, like you've been obsessed with Lurking Predators since Silicon Dynasty. Like, I don't see it as often,
It was
man.
a great game.
Listen, and that's fine.
He
but
brought out so many big things that just say no to everything, stacks pieces majorly, and it was just a problem. A lot of things from Kinnan just coming out, doubling, tripling their mana, even with Nixloom Ancient, just off the top of their library with Glen Elendra. Lurking Predators is a problem, especially with Allosaurus Shepherd that can protect it. They're able to do a lot.
It is nice. It is cool. I'll give it to you. One thing that I've seen a lot of is just throwing and swarming that board insanely well, right? The ability to play, Cryptolithic Rites. So I'll go back. The ability to play Cryptolithic Rites, the new Elven version of it, really strong, really cool. And both of those give you strong abilities to say any card you have is a mana dork, right? Anything you have. It's one of the few decks where I'd rather Cryptolithic Rites than an Earthcraft. Very scary. And anytime you're going to say that you're choosing the usually worst version of a card, you are in a scary position. Hate it, love it at the same time. But weaknesses of Keenan, right? What are you thinking?
One of the major weaknesses of Keenan is that it needs Keenan. Without Keenan, it can't really do anything. If you see someone casting Basalt Monolith and they're almost tapped out, kill the Keenan, remove it, do something to get rid of it.
As soon as you can.
That way Basalt Monolith can't generate them infinite mana, and they can't do anything after that.
Very true, very true, very true. It also kind of hates stacks, like a lot. There are some other decks that can kind of play around it, right? You'll see Null Rod is only really effective against Tivit, but Blue Farm kind of breezes through it. The same opposite reverse goes for Cursed Totem. But Keenan suffers from both. It has a really strong hatred of Cursed Totem, a really strong hatred of Null Rod effects, and those things can kind of wipe them essentially out of the game, right? A Cursed Totem on a Keenan, what are they going to do now? You got a 2/2 off the top of my head, I think it is. And then pray that they can get some big creatures. Yeah, but they built their deck around not casting those. You're going to get those huge advantages. Another thing, Grafdigger's Cage just makes them cry.
Yes.
Right? Relying on Simic to remove an artifact can be done, right? It's definitely, you have that green, you have the Force of Vigors, you have those options.
Nature's Claim,
right?
Return to Nature.
But if you can protect a Grafdigger's Cage against a Keenan, you're having a great day. A really strong time. Damping Sphere is actually really cool. If you tap a land for mana, they make Tellers instead, and it has that anti-storm property. It's nice, it's cool, but it does help them affect those kind of lands that might be used for filtering, for getting those two colors, as opposed to anything else, right? One deck I definitely always love seeing, a friend of mine actually played it, Florian. Really cool, right? Shout out to Max. He made 2 tops with it in both Chaos Treasure 3 and Punt City 2. Really strong. But that deck, I think, is a really strong sleeper, right? That really nice ability to say, any damage that's been gone through this turn helps you filter out, go through your deck. Really strong at the end of the turn, at the end of main phase. At the beginning of main phase
2.
Main phase 2? Sure, let's go back. So a very strong ability that says the beginning of main phase 2, you get to go look down equal to how much life opponents have lost this turn, go through all those, take 1, exile it, play it that turn. Still have to pay mana cost, which is fair, right? But you get a huge dig off a good Florian swing, right? This guy's got 3/3 the first strike, and it is powerful, right? You get to play Bolas combos. You get to play anything in Rakdos. You're just a pile at that point. You get to pick your poison and have fun with it, right?
Dragon's Approach is a really good card in that, and you can play multiple copies of it.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Really deep, do a lot of damage, 3 damage per player, 9 cards. You don't even have to swing a Florian at that point. Go 9 cards deep, see what you get.
Very true, right? And again, strengths. This thing is actually really hard to deal with, right? While as in Rakdos, it's easy to kill. This thing has a lot of just random pingers that kind of punish you all for just playing the game plan, right? I've even seen a Wheel of Fortune into an Underworld Dreams, and that's been, that was brutal, right? But again, it's got its counters, right? look at the weaknesses of this deck, right? You are very reliant on this commander, very reliant for those digging, very reliant for that. And remember, it is an exile. So you can hit them with a Draenith, and they just got to cry, right?
It's also a pseudo storm deck, right?
Yes.
So hitting it with a silence or a dampening sphere, even that also slows down the deck drastically.
Very nice. Deck hates a rule of law, and you love it at some points, right? Stax has to make a comeback. Right now, we are very much in that downswing. We're in that kind of swing where mid-range and turbo are thriving, and that is nice, right? You all deserve it, right? Seeing some really nice innovations, but remember, the stronger turbo deck gets, the more powerful a stack sleeper can come up and just poke out of the wind, right? We've seen that pendulum. We know how it goes. Remember, your answers sometimes are just saying no, and that is a viable option. All right, now for the last of the big three, right? A big friend, a big fan, Najeela the Blade Blossom. Archaeos the Ever Chosen, right? Very cool, very nice. What are we thinking about it?
It's very strong. You're able to get it out turn 1 with Jewel Lotus, and then turn 2, you're already pumping out multiple soldiers. It's a great commander. It's 5 colors. It's able to pump out creatures really quickly, and then at some point you just take infinite combats and the game's over.
Very nice, right? Again, I think Najeela is very possibly the strongest current pure turbo deck in the format. That, like Devin said, that really strong push of I want to draw cards, I want to swing, you pick and pick, and then you don't have to worry about it, right? You have a lot of options with those warriors, right? A very nice Ultra, either Phyrexian or Astronauts, really strong. Derevi, the most infinite combo with that guy, with that girl, very strong, very good, right? But again, right, you suffer from success. Anytime that you see one of these big 3 decks at your LGS, you have a lot of concerns, right? You can always remember that none of these decks really love a Curse Totem, do they?
No.
Blue Farm can handle it pretty well, but they don't really lave it, right? They were not heavy on Dorks, but
Blue Farm and Tivit are the ones who can get away with Curse Totem. Najeela suffers from it, but
No Rods
hurts
all three, right? Again, stacks them out. They could not handle Null Rod very effectively in those other 2. And that last one, the Curse Totem, really nice. If you can get away with it, a really strong hit. Another option, a Persecution effect. I've seen Elesh Norn Classic make a return, right? That +2, -2 for your opponents, really good. Consistent board wipe, very nice opener. Kills all the mana dorks that you see, makes your stuff actually a problem. Very good, right? And then lastly, they are a little bit fragile in that 1-card combo department, right? The Derevi is really strong. Kill it the moment you see it. The moment you can, get rid of that bird. Any other thoughts?
Let's see. Other cards that work in that deck would be Aggravated Assault. It works just like Najeela's activated ability, but instead you're paying 2 red and 3 colorless, which is a lot easier to achieve. That's an enchantment that's easy to remove as well if you're in green or in white. And then lastly, it would be, you played the one enchantment, Nature's Will.
Nature's Will is so great.
Nature's Will
is
a
good
problem
card.
It will tap all your lands and untap all of their lands.
Right.
That is a card you also need to get rid of.
The moment a warrior touches you, they're all your lands completely offline, turns on all of theirs. Since it stacks really well, very easily to throw all that mana out, pump it up, make it go off. Fabro Elder as well, right? That untapping once it swings, untap it, get your mana, swing, loop it over and over and over again. Druid's Repository, Nature's Will, Bear Umbra, Sword of Feast and Famine. There are so many 1-card win cons with Najeela. Get rid of them, right? Throw them out. Burn them to the ground. You know exactly what to do. You get Najeela off, you keep her away, right? Fun fact, all these decks kind of have a little bit of a problem with the new One Ring, don't they? Right? Tivit cannot get around you if you dropped a One Ring and you're kind of sitting on that protection. Najeela, the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Blue Farm will try to go for their infinite combos. But again, you have that huge draw advantage that can't brain freeze you out in case it comes up. Sometimes it doesn't, but it is a thing to be aware of. Anything else that we kind of wanted to talk about? Any other decks? Any kind of weaknesses? Or we think we're going to save them for the next time?
We'll probably save it for next time. Right now,
Absolutely.
we talked about the big 3 decks that are roaming around stores right now and tournaments. So that's what we talked about. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm. And again, all these little notes that we've kind of mentioned will be aligned on that data sheet that we're going to bring up to you guys. Just wait a little bit. It's going to be great. Huge information for you. Keep following. Keep track of us. We will get that to you as soon as we can. All right. Thank you guys so much for staying with us. We love having these discussions. Any other strengths and weaknesses of the decks that you guys think, drop them in the comments. Drop them in and let us know. We will absolutely be here to listen to them. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll even take those into account, put those on the data sheets, and we'll make sure to give you guys some nice credit for it. All right. Thanks again. This has been Bridging the Gap. I'm Milton.
I'm Devin.
And let's have a nice day.
Don't forget to subscribe.